Oh right, here we are. Russ is red. Hi Russ. Here she is, ready to come to you from all the way over in cloudy England. But hey, I wouldn't be English if I wasn't going to mention the weather, would I? So look, this is the first de-stringing of this guitar, straight up on the bench the first time, and I get to keep yet another neck, and you get to get this nice red body, and it looks pretty good even though it hasn't even been cleaned, so it's going to look even better when I finish with it. But we're going to take this neck off, and the first thing I'm going to do is just check for a straight out fit, which would be brilliant if that's the case. I think I will try to keep these strings for another day. This neck has been quite well played, so it's by no means in bad condition. It's just got a bit of dirt on there, but they are great basic Telecasters, these what do you call them, this standard series. Okay, now if I were to this is the old thing, if I was to keep these, I have to straighten them out. Let's wonder if I can possibly even entertain the idea of pulling them straight through. May not be successful, but let's see. One. Fingers crossed. So what we've got on here is these nice milled steel looking blocks. I mean, I don't know if they're milled or whatever, but the saddles are cut above the usual Squier stuff. So nice quality, good for sustain. I know that Russ has Tusk ones on his blue, but this is good quality steel. Looks like I've taken a chunk out of my finger here without knowing it. Oh, ouch. Next door shouting as usual. Let's hope that doesn't bleed. I'll survive, I'm sure. Shout, shout, shout. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie these up, but I'm also going to put a label on them so I have some vague idea what they are. I think I've done similar with something up there. So I'm going to put Telecaster. That would be really smart. Okay, so this is a fun process for me, because it's, compared to what else I've got on at the moment, this is nice and simple. Tele, I don't even know what gauge they are, but it's not really important right now. They'd only be sacrificial strings anyway, but they're not particularly old or anything. So this came from a chap in Plymouth. And was well looked after. So look, I'm going to go straight to the business of removing the neck, because that's where we're at. And then I'll do some cleaning overall on the neck, and then I'll do a check of the fit first. Should be no problem. I expect the neck from Russ's ProTone would go on here. Now if it hasn't got the right thickness or anything, we've always got the option to shim it, which is not a problem. Got plenty of copper and tin and even lead, if that's the mood we're in. Although it's not that these bodies need any extra weight, they're pretty chunky full thickness things. Nice overall finish. The jack plate, by the way, is loose, so that's going to need taken care of. It's classic, all the bits that all the parts that move eventually will break down or conk out. Yeah, so I'm telling myself this is the easy bit compared to working on Murray's modern player. Okay, it's all straight off, no big deal. We've got 2003 date here, so 1st of November, yeah, 01 Nov 2003. So that's got a fair old life behind it already. 1st of November 2003. Off comes the nice neck, and it's typical of so many guitars, despite how many owners it's had. Look, the plastic is still on the covers. It's just, I don't know why people do this. It's like not wrapped, not unwrapped. You know, if you're gonna have a guitar, play it from the minute you get it. Don't just sort of keep it wrapped up for some other occasion. I don't know. Anyway, so we've got these, got this ProTone neck here now. Russ's favourite baby, refretted. Look at that, look how nice that's looking. Got a bit of green snot on there from the green machine. But let's have a feel. Ooh, into the hole. Yum, yum, yum. Nice. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Look at that. As with all tellies, a little bit of wobble. You know, because they're only held particularly straight on one side. So what we're looking for is, if we get a nice snug fit down one side, do we get a nice straight line? Because I'd rather use an edge to guide me in terms of the string placement. So let's have a quick look. That won't help. Let's look at down the A string. So let's have a look now. Oops, stay where you are. Okay, so that's jamming it against the chunky side. That's on the top E, and let's jam. Okay, now jammed against the other side. Yeah, did you want to go? I've got a feeling that it wants to go elsewhere, so I may need to end up using a couple of those sacrificial strings back again to align this neck properly. And it may need a little shim there. It also, I don't know, but it may need one upwards as well. Funny that the way it sits, dead flat on, that feels like the correct place for it. Let's just drop this out of the way for a minute. Now this will, I'll need to put sort of more regular string trees on this. So it's quite difficult to know. That feels like it's the dead-on position for this guitar. Let's just see where we line up without moving anything. It's very difficult to do this without moving stuff. Okay, so when it's sitting in its natural position, a low E looks like it's got too much room, and a high E, yeah, it's running off. So that's kind of where we want to go. High E, if we do it that way, high E runs quite nicely all the way down, and a low E, it's about right actually. Its correct position is up against the wall. If you'll excuse the gangster slang, it is, yeah, it's nicely tucked in against this wall. Okay, and then the next question, if I can just prop this up for a minute. The next question is, does it give us the action we want? But first of all, I've got to make sure this neck isn't over supported. Is that right? Is that about right? That's about right. Oops, sorry. Let's have a look. We'll run it down the G, somewhere near the middle. Down the G. Okay, so we got quite a drop needed. We've got about 4mm at the last fret, and we've got at least 4mm on the stilts, the legs, if you know what I mean. The issue being, if I drop them down, do it on the G, so I run these right the way down. Now it's the opposite way. Run them all the way down to the floor. We may just sort of make contact with the fingerboard. We may also make contact with the pickup. Running along the G, running along the G. Okay, well that's off the back end of the ashtray bridge, so let me just push that along a bit. Alright, that's not bad actually, so let's get it right. So near its bottom, but not completely at the bottom, I've got about 2mm left, and we've got an action of about 2mm. So given that we're never going to want to go straight down flat on the deck, this looks to me like a good start point, and it saves or obviates any need for putting a shim in, which is fine to do, it's okay to do, but in some ways if you can avoid doing it, it's even better, because you have complete wood to wood contact all the way around inside the pocket, and I think that is just about spot on. That will do. If we get it on and we run out of action, then so be it. Now, what I've got to do, the question here is, do we go with the black tuners? I think we do, actually, because I think chrome suits this neck fine. These are slightly nicer, they're kind of more vintagey, they've actually got a bit of character to them. I don't know quite what make they are, but they're a nice quality, definitely a vintagey feel thing. So I would suggest sticking with those, and they go with the black of Morris and the dark colour of the neck, whereas this one is lighter all round. So if you're happy with that, Russ, I'll keep the chrome things, and I prefer the black ones, I have to say, but I think the black ones look better on your neck. So there you go. You get those, and I get some sitting on a Telecaster head stock waiting to go somewhere else. Right, so the things to do is I need to, this has been filled a couple of times before, they're not huge holes. I need to clean up some of the green snot off here, which we don't want to be seen on the new one, and but I don't want to thin anything out. And then I'm going to give this a good old clean, and I'll get under the covers really and have a poke around and make sure I can stabilise these jack plugs. I hate this kind of jack plug, I have to say. It's a really bizarre invention. I also will take these tuners off and just put little fills into these holes here from previous things. So there's a little bit of fiddly work, and I'm not going to do it on camera because I'm going to just sort of zone out for a bit and listen to the radio. But I'll take most of this apart. Help, run out of room as usual. Take most of this apart just to get a good look at all the bits and pieces. I'll start now while I'm at it, but I'll switch off not too long from now. It's a nice body. It's not only red, Russ. Don't know if you can see in this video. Not only is it red, but it's also sparkly red, which is nice. Sort of metallic fleck in there. Okay, so quick look under the covers. It looks nicely done. Insulation paint, shielding paint, I should say, on the inside there. No real reasons for anything not to work in there. I will double check. I haven't heard this guitar at all, so with the new neck it's pretty much going to be the first time I get to play it. And don't forget, once we put the Russ's special ProTone neck on, we've got to fret level it once in place, because at the moment it's just had a very light starter level, based on flattening it out on the deck, if you like. I've got the wrong lead out here. This is not a convenient lead for testing things. It's too long and fabricy. And we're running effects for some reason. Come on, I don't need effects, just need some sound. Thank you. Let's have a listen. Tone volume, middle, neck. Okay, good. Everything works as it should. Bit of wobble in here, which I don't like, and I'll take a closer look at. But good. So far, so good. Let's quickly take this off. I'm going to use the power thing to speed this along. Just have a look at what we've got. Also, I can just get a quick clean under here as well, which I like to do, to get some of the historical grime out. A few of these pickguard screws are a little bit worn in places, but they're not too bad. Okay, I'll just pull that through, just gives us a little bit of leeway, move about. we've got a humbucker here, and obviously we've got a potted humbucker, which is good. No shielding in there, which technically some would say we don't need. Let's have a look. Polishing cloth in here. Let's have a quick look at. That's a lovely finish underneath the plate. It's one of those things we can really see the unspoiled, unweathered part of the guitar. But 2003, what's that? 13 years. It's not bad going. And to be honest, this thing, I'm just going to do a quick little bit where the lines cross over. I just want to see how much better this comes up with a little bit of polish. Very nice indeed. Yeah, can barely see the difference between the two parts, which you currently can see here. Put some down there, go on with that as well. So I'll disappear and come back when I've got the neck on and we're ready to go. I'll have filled the holes here, piloted some more, put it on, and we'll get into the stringing and fret leveling process. See you in a bit. Okay, quick check-in. Here we have red. It's got the neck on, and to be honest, it's lining up quite nicely. A little bit more room on this side than on this side, but actually playable. Its playability is pretty good. What I've noticed is we have to get this at the right action. These top and low, high and low E are on the floor, so we could leave it like that, but actually I could go down a tiny bit with this still. So realistically, I think we're going to need to put a tin shim in this neck just to raise it a tiny bit, just to give us back. I'd also still like to order a set of small grub screws, because I don't like them sticking up and hitting the palm, so a small set in there will be much better. But I have to say, on the plus side, this neck straight onto this guitar feels absolutely brilliant. Beautiful, beautiful neck. And Russ is going to be so pleased to get it back, because it is absolute quality. And now refretted and refreshed, it looks like a brand new beast. Okay, later. So are we running? Yes, we're running camera. Yeah, this is Russ's red, and I decided last night that this needs a shim. It only needs a very fine one, so I'm going to do a tin shim. Just because I don't like starting off with a guitar flat on its saddle. So I don't know if you can see here. Let me move a few things. This is, the action's really nice on this right now, but you can see that two low E's are right on the deck as a start point. And what it means is that, first of all, there's a couple of things. One is you can't go any further down, so if you wanted a bit better action, you can't have it. The second one is that all these grub screws stick up quite a long way, and for those who like palm muting, that kind of gets in the way and they stick into your palm, unless you buy a new set of small size ones, which I probably will do if I can just remember when I go in the house. Now, putting a small shim like this, making it made from a bit of, it's not tin, it's brass. A brass shim like this isn't going to solve all of that issue down there. It's not going to disappear all of this stuff, but it will reduce it just slightly. So there's my shim for going across the neck pocket. I still would probably order some shorter ones of those. Take who knows how long to arrive. It's not the end of the world, but for somebody who likes to do palm muting when they play, these can get a bit painful, and I don't want to cut them off with a Dremel, which is also possible, but it usually screws up the hex bit at the top. So as an absolute desperate measure, I would. So what I'm going to do, it's a bit annoying, but I'm going to unstring all of this. I'm going to take the neck off. Am I going to completely unstring it? Oh, I could do a couple of things. I'm just looking at what we've got here, because there's might need a possible side shim as well. So I'm just going to prepare for that by cutting another piece of, a small piece of plastic. Now I'm just looking at the positioning here. It's pretty good actually. I'm not sure I want to put a piece in there and bend it in any other direction. Although I might just put a tiny little bit in the corner pocket there, but it is a variety of small sizes that I'd need, so I'm just going to cut a couple of very little pieces. And these are actually quite relatively thick by comparison, so I'm just going to cut a range of little bits, so I've got a few to choose from and stash them there. Again, as I say, they are a little bit on the thick side, which may be too much. Oh, what I can then do is go back, which I've immediately lost, go back to the leftover bit of brass that I just had, which of course I've now misplaced. But I could go back to a piece of brass and just cut another little piece which is slightly thinner, and I can use that as the side shim if I need it. Just being sort of prepared, and then if I really need something even thinner, I could go back to some tin, which is, there it goes, slightly thinner again. But it's just having a few things, and then anything I don't use I'll end up putting back in the sort of the nut and saddle department. So a few little various bits, and if I go and get some tin, which is somewhere, there we go, I don't know how thick that is, tin, use some tin with some chunky lead, that's not what I want. Where's the tin gone? Move some things around. Bit of tidying up to do as usual. Some tin in a new packet. Aha, there we go. Tin. Just slightly thin again. So let's take a little piece off here. And then we'll make some little various sized inserts, depending on what we might find. Okay, so really it's about the differing thickness there. So I don't have to take the strings off. What I could do is attach the old, this is wearing out, I must get a new one. Attach the old capo, and this will hold them on whilst giving me a chance to take the neck off. Just going to give myself some slack. These are sacrificial strings, sorry, not a very good view. These are sacrificial strings, so I'm not expecting them to last very long. They only have to do this particular job. Alright, now, so what we're doing is, the main thing is we're shimming the neck to give it some upward lift so that we can raise the saddles up just a little bit more. Now I don't want to do this on the raise, I want to put this flat, roughly flat. There's plenty of torque to get it undone. So, you can probably hear the windy weather outside. It's pretty breezy today. Okay, so let's just gently turn it around, put it down, support it a little bit. Actually, it doesn't really need that. Okay, so there's our guitar off. Now, just as a thought, when we put it back on, really what we want to have happen is we need a tiny fractional movement of the low E string that way, tiny fraction. So the way you do it is by pushing just the edge out of the neck on this side, or alternatively pushing the bass in on this side, achieve the same thing. So top edge out or base it in. And most people tend to put a little push a little bit in there because it's less visible, I suppose. Whether or not it's going to turn it the way I want it, basically the neck's going to make the same movement, so if it's going to produce a gap there, it will produce it whether we like it or not. Okay, so the first thing is my upward shim, and I'm going to put it right at the back, which is where it should live. That's my upward shim, and I'm going to put a little, what shall I start with? Should we go tin? Let's go tin shim on the, now this, interestingly, what we don't have is anything to stick this on with, so let's do a little bit of double-sided sticky tape magic or something. Might as well have something that holds in place, actually for both of them, because otherwise it's just, we're sort of working with something that's trying to fall off the whole time. That wasn't very good cut, young man. So, a bit of a crude thing. It's usually easier to work with a wooden bench of a wooden block or plank for this sort of thing, but this will do. And then I'll put a little piece on here, press it flat, cut it off here, sorry it's out of shot. So, just had a really interesting email this morning from a chap who spends his time between India and the UK, and he was asking would I set up or refret or fix up his old Fender Music Master for him, which has been in his attic for a couple of centuries, and it's kind of perfect for me, so I love that sort of thing. Okay, so there's one sticky sided thing waiting to go into the side. Just see, we can always take it out if it's too much. Sometimes you can just achieve the same thing by moving the neck into position exactly the way you want it before you screw it down, and that works. I'd rather, if it needs that little push, I'd rather it had a bit of a tiny shim in there, and you'll often find them, if I can get the sticky working on here, you'll often find them on guitars. They use quite often a kind of sandpaper, thick sandpaper, like from a belt. I think they cut up some old sanding belts and use little bits of that. It's quite, because it's, what's the word, it's got sand on it, therefore it sort of sticks to it doesn't slide around, which is quite good. So I'm going to just put this in manually here on the side of the pocket. That's my concession to pushing that part of the neck a little bit outwards, and then I'm going to lower this back into place and then let it pull tight. Now that actually does the trick beautifully. Just looking at it right now, that's spot on. So I'm going to not show you this bit very accurately. I'm just going to hold it up and push it hopefully into place. Reverse my drill, my screwdriver sequence, and let it pick it up again. And then just slowly let the countersunk screws pull the plate into place where they want it to be. And everything just about tightens up nicely right at the end. And then if you want, you can end up with a physical push. Now I can't be sure yet until I take off or until I put a bit of pressure on the strings. Has that improved that? If I just get this in a line, let's see. Hard to know until I've taken these off, so let's get the thing under a little bit of pressure. I think that's just about lined it up perfectly. Just about the right amount. There's still a fraction more left to the high E string, which is what I would prefer of the two if I was building this from scratch. If there was if there was any competition for real estate, as we could call it. Lovely. I'm very happy with that. It's going to stay exactly there. So we know we've got a tiny, I think it's about 0.2mm tin shim gone on in there, and that just puts this neck into the position we want. Now, just to make it so we're sure, I'm now going to put the just give it a couple of tweaks with the hand driver, and just so we can feel the amount of torque. I know the machine tells us, but I like to feel what I'm doing. That's good. I like that. So now, what we should have noticed, the whole point of this, by the way, is that, just get my little Allen key, I did that so that this thing, I've got something that's in tune. I've got the bass guitar. So I've put that back under into tuning, and what we should see is basically a raise of the neck at this end, and looking at it, it's maybe we could even use a bigger shim, because I'm just looking, that's gone to 1.5 and we're still on the deck, so really I'd want a slightly bigger shim than that. So maybe I've been a bit cautious doing the brass option, and I need to go to the copper option, which is just fine and dandy. I mean, that's a thick one. Now this one I think is a 0.9mm, copper 9mm. Blimey, no, it's not. It's 1.25. Where's the rest of my copper gone then? Some of the old copper that isn't 1.9mm thick. Okay, what have I got here? I've got some new copper that is 0.75. Okay, I'll have to go with a bit of this. So, this is good. I keep this copper for making jack plates for guitars like the oak casters, but also sometimes for Telecasters. So here we have a freshly coiled up piece of copper, and it's thicker than the brass that we've got in there, which I don't think is lifting this enough to make much difference down there. So as you can see, it hasn't changed the sitting of the neck that much. So sometimes you might say, well, why don't you measure how much up you want it and do it? Because sometimes I've done that and it doesn't quite seem to match exactly. Don't know why. Maybe it's something inaccurate about doing it, but I prefer to try it and see, and then we can redo it one more time, and then we pretty much we're sorted. I mean, it could be, we could put a 2mm or a 1.5mm piece in here, and it would give us back all that action on the whatchamacallit, saddles, but I don't want to go up much more than I have to, and that's a nice shaped piece. I don't want to go massively high, I just want to give myself a bit of action back. Okay, so we repeat the process, annoyingly. And even once we've done all of this stuff, now the nice thing is the side shim is going to stay in place, but once we've done all of this stuff, then we've then still got to do the precision fret leveling. But we say that we only have to do it if we have any problem playing. So I've done a basic fret level on this thing. Have I done a basic fret level? I think I did. Maybe I haven't. I can't feel any. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I've done that on Malcolm's Avon neck. But yeah, the principle being, we'll only fret level it if it absolutely needs it. So this thing plays at the action I want all the way through. Then all I'm going to do is polish up these frets. It'd be quite unusual because this is a re-fretted guitar, and you know, no matter how much I like my fretting, it's quite unusual to have got it absolutely right for a low action in the first instance. So I mean, you know, if it works, then I'll take it, but like I said, unusual. Okay, so again, off with these. Obviously I don't want to do this too many times, because when screws go into wood, it's always going to be weakening the wood. No matter how much care I take. So realistically, we want to get this right sooner rather than later. And in this case, I'm going to prise out the brass thing, as that's already, and that made it nice and stuck. So I have to work a bit to get it out. And I will use a similar technique with a bit of the old sticky stuff, because I think it's quite good to have it in place, so that if you do have to take the neck off in future, you aren't going to lose it suddenly. Just slam this together for a minute, flatten it. Yeah, we don't want to. It's easier if it just doesn't drop out the first time you have to take the neck off, so this is my way of making sure that doesn't happen. And it's no big deal, it doesn't take much longer to do this. Get it off the copper onto the paper would be helpful, Sam. Right. Let's pull up the stuff. Okay, so with yeah, our tin bit is still there. Here's our 0.75 copper shim. In she goes, and then back on it goeth the neck. And I'm going to live with this, however it goes at this point, because I don't want to be taking it on and off anymore, and I don't think it needs a 1.5mm piece. Back up, don't want to tighten it up yet. Now before I finish tightening that up, I'm just going to double check the positioning. That looks really good. I'm very pleased. So a bit of a push on this. We're over 7 on the torque, so I won't go all the way with it. I'll do the rest by hand. Oh, I'll do it on that one. I'll do it. Oh, what the hell, 7's not too bad. Okay, right, we have the shim in place of the full size, and then if we now go up, push our things straight up. Now you can hear it hitting the frets, which is what we hope to do. So we've got the shim is doing its job nicely now, hitting the frets. So we need to come up with the bridge saddles, which is what we wanted, to put some action back into those. It's not hitting all of them, by the way, it's just hitting the ones in the middle, because they're telling me they're a little bit lower at the moment. Let's take a note off the famous bass. We better crank these up a little bit first, otherwise we are not going to get any noise out of that, and I'm not going to know if it's in tune. So I'm just going to sort of casually throw a curve without too much consideration. I'm going to throw a sort of radius curve into this bridge saddle arrangement, which is higher than it was. As simple as that. That's what I'm aiming for right now. And basically all I just want to do for this second is get all the strings playing, and then I can tune them, and then I can go back into the rest of the game. and I'm doing this by eye, so I'm just aiming to get the two sets of 3 to the sort of same kind of level, and they're all playing, which is cool. So go back to my E, no, my A in this case. Right, so now I have the saddles raised up a little bit, a bit of movement available to us in either direction, and actually if we look at this right now, we're on a very low action, so wow, that's just on a tad over 1 millimeter there, which is probably too low for a player like Russ, he said presumptuously, but there's no point having it kind of super low if that really doesn't fit somebody's style. I mean, yes, I go on about reloved guitars, you know, the trademark is being able to get a really low action out of precision fret leveling, and that's true, but you know, it isn't just the case that everybody wants the guitar like that, just because you can do it. Which is why I increasingly spend time checking with people before I take on their job, to make sure that what I do is what they are happy with. Because there's no point me going for my trademark super low action if somebody absolutely hates that style of, or that kind of setup. Because it is a personal, personalised, subjective thing. I mean, there are obviously some mechanical principles behind it, but when it comes to what people like, that is clearly subjective, and there's no point giving something to somebody that they really won't like. So I'm just trying to get this now stabilised so that we can get ready to do our fret leveling and stuff. Right, so first thing I tell you is the nut slots on this are horrible, and the action at the nut is all over the shop. So I'm going to double check now the string action at the bridge. Sorry, you're looking at the wrong bit, my mistake. I'm just going to double check in measurement the action at the bridge, and then I'm going to check the relief, and then I'm going to aim for the nut slot. So we got 1.2 here on the bass string, on the bass of the E, 1.1, a bit too high, so there's my thingy. The A is a bit lower, it's not quite in between the two settings. Okay, lifts it up, looks down it, sights down it, 1.2, blimey, under 1, 1.2. So I'm getting those middle ones wrong-ish, because I'm not judging the curve exactly right, but that's okay. It's funny, it's an old discussion. Do you tilt the saddles, or do you just step them up digitally? It doesn't really make any difference. You can, either which way you can get the strings to the same height. I think some people prefer it looking one way, and some people prefer it looking another way. Okay, here we are playing. Right, so I'm happy with the action there for the time being. Now the question I've got to take seriously at this point is, does this or does this not play all the way? Because if it does play all the way, I mean, I know that right at this end here that the nut action is wrong. Actually, I need to do the just double check the relief before I ascertain whether it plays or not, because I know the nut action's crappy. And I could, let's do it properly. Let's just take care of that and then make the assessment, Sam. Very well. So, yeah, relief. There's so many arguments online. You've got to do the relief first, and you do this, and then you do that. My take on this is, if you do it one way and you get the results you want, then do it the way you want. You know, if you have a particular way of achieving a result, then don't listen to somebody coming along telling you some arbitrary, abstract way it must be done, because it doesn't really make any sense at all. When somebody hits you with that, what they're doing is they're telling you that they can't think any way other than dogmatically, and that's a pity, and it doesn't make for good communication and conversation, I have to say. You know, the conversation just stops at that point. But just remember, if you have a way of doing it and it works, then do it. All right? It doesn't matter how, and it certainly doesn't warrant having arguments about it. That's a really stupid thing. Now, it's difficult to gauge this in any way. It's a visual thing. If I can keep this thing from bouncing. The question is, do I have any fresh air under this? And there is just about. So this is about 0.23, something like that, in relief, and I'm happy with that. Nothing I want to change on that, unless something doesn't work right and that brings to attention that I might want to do something, but right now that's absolutely fine. So we're happy with that, happy with the bridge action. We've got a bit more, a bit less sticking up here, but I would still go for the small reduced sized grub screws, and I will order those, and hopefully we might get them. Russ, if I don't get them in time, I'll send them on to you separately, because they are a real bonus when you put these in, and you get rid of that sharp feeling. The alternative, of course, is you can put something soft across the top, even a strip of, I don't know, little bits of rubber or something, anything that will go across the top there without interfering with the strings. Maybe it's not a good idea, but you know, I don't like getting scraped like that. Anyway, next question, or next issue, is I've got a set of files picked out here for doing this guitar, and we're going to go from 10 to, well, my choice is oversized. I always go oversized, so don't worry what I'm doing. I'm just going with an oversized for 10. Let's just call it that much. And I'm just going to do what I normally do now, which is start from the D, and come outwards. If I unscrewed the right tuner. I'm going to work from the D outwards. Now, normally I would go for a 0.3mm. Let's see where we are. We are spot on there, so I'm not going to do anything with that one. Now people say to me, what files do you use? And I say, go on eBay and search for Japanese nut files, Hiroshima nut files, or Hiroshima nut files, whichever you like to pronounce it. They're made in Japan, and they're sold, as far as I know, by a chap in Canada who I bought mine off, and it's well worth buying them if that's you're going to do a lot of this stuff. You can do a cheaper method. I've shown it on a few occasions, using a diamond coated jeweler's file. But you know, if you're going to do this a lot, buy a set of files. But if you're going to do it, if you predominantly do 9s, don't buy a set of 9s, because A, they will grab and choke the snag the string, because doing to the exact size is very difficult. There we are. And B, you will then choke any gauge above that anyone might want, like a 10 or 11. So I recommend you get the 11s, and they will do for everything, including 11 if you wiggle them a little bit. But if you get 11s, you'll be set for 10s, 9s easily, and 11s with the occasion that you get 11s. That's what I would do. Now, as it happened, I ended up buying 3 sets, because it took me a while to work out that you don't need 3 sets, you just need 1 and make it do for all the others. But there we go, I found out the hard way, of course. I am going to do a video of how to do it the other way, the cheap way, with the diamond jewelers file, but that's got to go in kind of connection with premium content, if you like, with an ebook I'm putting together. And I say I'm putting together, it's been a hell of a long time in the coming. I've been so damn busy. I still intend to do it. How to, five-step Reloved Guitars setup how to, and there'll be some premium content, so you don't have to go through all of my old videos to find things. And so that will also include how to use the diamond jewelers file, diamond coated jewelers file. It sounds really grand, that tool, but actually they're very, very inexpensive. And I'll show you one, if I can find the one that's right. Is that a square one? That's a square one. Somewhere in there is a diamond shaped one. Sorry about this. Yeah, so I'm talking about these cheap things from a set. This one's a bit worn out now, so it's worth buying another set for about £6 UK sterling, and you get about 8 in the set, 6 to 8, of which one of them is this triangular thing, and you can do all of your nut adjustments with that. Purists would have a fit and scream at you, but you can do it, and the outcome is pretty good. Now that's dropped a little bit lower than I'd like. It's not too low, but this is what I hate working with this graphite stuff. It's totally unpredictable to cut, whereas bone is much better. This guitar, now it's quite interesting because originally when I was going with the green Telecaster body for this neck, that's why I put the black nut on, even though I'm not a fan of this graphite stuff. So now we've gone back to a red, white. Although we've got black tuners, we still have an option to put a white nut back on there and it wouldn't look bad. So if this doesn't play okay, that will be my next stop, my next port of call. Now this also is a little bit lower than I'd ideally like, but that's what I've arrived at, or what is what I've started with. So I'll just leave it as is. This one has a little bit of fresh air, so we can do a tiny tweak on this. It may be not absolutely perfect in terms of even, but if it plays good, then there you go, on the mark, I'll stop. But if not, I will ditch it and get straight back to the land of bone. Now this one's way too high, so we've got quite a bit of cutting to do on here, which will improve things. But yeah, so you can definitely use these Hiroshima nut files, or you can use a cheaper alternative if you're prepared to incur the wrath. Now, the pros and cons are various, and you have to, as long as you know what they are, and you kind of, as long as you're taking an intelligent approach to what you're doing, then you know what the pros and cons are. Can I tell you which is absolutely empirically better or worse? I can't. You can tell that I prefer to do it ultimately with these, which is why I continue to do it. But if I couldn't afford them, I would certainly have no problem doing it with those. There is a tiny drawback in doing it, but you have to say to yourself, compared to not having enough money, let's say I don't have enough money to buy the 50 quid set of Hiroshima nut files, then maybe that little drawback is so tiny. I'm not going to go into it now because that's part of the video, but the drawback is so tiny that for saving 50 quid and making my, let's say, my bedroom Squier Stratocaster play brilliantly well around the nut, and to learn the principles of it, I think it pays off massively. It vastly outweighs those tiny drawbacks. So I do recommend it, and I will be showing how to do it. In another video. All right. I'm quite surprised. That is playing really good. I think we're not going to need a fret level, and that would be the #1 refret I've done that doesn't need a fret level at all. Well, that would be the only one. Let's just see what the action is on that. If that's the case, I will do it. It'd be nice to. Oh well, hang on a minute. Hold on. That's 0.6 of a millimetre. That's not. No wonder that's not right. I wonder it's not playing. That's way too low. Let's get this right. That's too high now. It's 1.5, but I want it about 1.3. So I'm just going to take it back off a tiny fraction. So it's quite difficult to get these exactly right, as you can see. But when you do, see that's now just over 1 millimetre. It's almost too low, and it should be around the 1.23 mark minimum on this kind of guitar, especially for Russ to play. No, this isn't necessarily perfectly in tune. Obviously not in tune, I'll get there. Just getting it to a state where we decide whether it needs a fret leveling or not. Hello. Thank you.
Did you go?
Yeah. Hang on a sec. 1 second. I'm just going to say, pass on goodwill message from a gentleman in India. Well, he's not in India. He splits his time between India and the UK. And he wishes you the best there. Yes, hang on. I'm just going to tell you what he says. Jim McQueen. Jim McQueen says. He says, love to your wife and the cats. I feel as if I already know you. There we go. So he's splits his time between India and the UK. He wants to send an old Fender Mustang to be redone, refretted. A bit like Jay's old one, Jay's old one. Yeah, hold on a sec. Okay, so while I was thinking I would not have to fret level this, I don't really have to, but what I do have to do, and I'd forgotten this, is I do need to do a little bit because there's some marks from the using the edging file. Quite often it skips across the frets and leaves a little cut here and there. So had I not done that, which I didn't do on Murray's, managed not to do on Murray's Telecaster, but had I not done that, I could have finally got away with not fret leveling this. But I'm still very pleased and very proud to be able to say this is the first refret that I've done where it's absolutely perfect at the stage of having put the frets in and not needing to do any more work to it. There's a tiny little thing I want to tweak there, but yeah, that's a really good thing. But it was a quality neck to start with, and this is it helped to make it easier. Okay, so I will go through the process of leveling and obviously show it, because that's what I do, no matter if you've seen it 1,000 times before. And the first thing I'm going to do is just slack everything off now and mark up the frets, hoping these strings are going to last long enough to do this job, because that's all really they have to do, and then they can go in the bin, and I'll be putting on the new ones. Yeah, so yeah, I'm very pleased with that. It's a kind of a little bit of a sort of encouragement. If I can do the next one without needing to actually level it, after having put the frets on myself, then it would be superb, because but to do that it means that I've got to not make any scratches while doing the fret edging, and that's really difficult, because the tool isn't curved, it's a flat tool, and so it tends, because you've got to put downwards and sideways pressure on it, it's very easy for it to skip sideways over the top of the frets at some point in the process. And when it does that, it scratches the frets, and usually I kind of don't have any problem with that because I'm almost always anticipating leveling frets after I've refretted. So, but in this case it would have been great because I wouldn't have had to, but I still have to take care of those marks. So the fret level is going to happen anyway if I can find the pen. Right, so marked up, strings back on, under their string trees. I mean, I say this was a really good neck. I mean, it is a good quality neck, there's no doubt about it, and it's got a nice slim profile, but I think it was, it isn't, I shouldn't really blame the neck for it doing well. It's a skill of the refretting as well, but I think one of the things that I did slightly differently with this and with Murray's Modern Player neck is that I took quite a lot of care to clean out the slots right to the edges, and that's the important bit. If you can really clean the slots out, you can get the new frets sitting right the way in the way they should. And if you can do that on every fret, then you're kind of away really. Okay, so here we have it. Guitar frets painted. Now I'll use the long beastie again. I'm going to try and use this more and more often. I like the other ones, they're a little bit easier to handle, but the truth is this one does it all in one. I don't have to kind of roll off the end with this one, so it is technically slightly better to use this one, although it takes a little bit more fiddling to get to map the neck curve, and the other one's a little bit easier, but you know, I'm prepared to do that if it needs be. Right, so okay, so we do the usual thing of mapping the neck first of all. Down a bit. Map the neck first of all and try and start off with it divided in 3 places. I'm going to use a bit of masking tape. Once I've got the division correct, I'm going to use a bit of masking tape to identify points where I'll put the, too long, I'll put the little brass nuts down again. Get in there. Okay, that's equidistant, so I'll just I'll put this on. I tend to try and point it at the place in the fret where it is, so that's halfway up the fret. This is sitting on the fret, so I use the edge, the pointy edge of the tape just to mark where it's sitting. And this one is sitting right in the middle of the fret because it can't really go anywhere else. So that's my marker. And then the next part of the game, of course, is to match the curvature and support the neck in a sort of as close to a neutral position as possible. Now this one straight away is telling me it's way too bent in the middle, so I'm going to slack that off, and I can immediately feel now it's gone the opposite way, and I start to dial in a bit of curve, and we're not there yet. It's very, very sensitive, so we're already now touching. It's about right. If I go a tad further, I'll start feeling it hitting the middle first, and then I know to back up. Okay, middle first, back off, and I can feel it actually turning in this hand as well. So that's a little indicator. Okay, that's a good start point. So off come the what's-its, off comes the string, off to one side. And this one, because it's using the full length thing, I'm going to have to push quite a long way with the string spreader, because I need to make enough room to use this thing. So I've got to be very careful that while I'm using this I now don't add any more curvature. So I'm very, very gentle, I'm conscious too that this was almost perfect to begin with, so I really don't want to stay too long on this. There's no need. It's only just going to take off any imperfections caused by the tool that I used for edging and beveling. But I can also, yeah, it's going to give me a little diagnostic here, so I can actually see which are the low frets anyway and which are the high frets. Because even though it was pretty perfect, there's always going to be a microscopic difference. You literally cannot get it perfectly from the outset. It's just not possible. Okay, so that's looking good. A quick diagnostic review shows me it's cutting everywhere along the neck, which is what I expected. The nice part about this process is now I can just double check in practice. Perfect. That is absolutely perfect. Now, Dave, if you're watching this, this is exactly what I did with your guitar. So, in case you're, you know, feeling like it's not playing the way you'd like, we use the same curvature on this one. Now, I kind of know already where the scratches are on this guitar, so I'm sort of looking out. And what happens is when you start to fret level, they tend to show up as dark patches underneath. They're still filled with marker pen, because the marker's gone into the pit of the scratch, if you like, or the scar. Okay, now this one's showing interesting. It's missing a couple down here. But it's sitting pretty much everywhere else, maybe not so much here. Ooh. Ooh. But we'll try this out again. And again, it's all about, does it play? Yep. Now I'm going to recalibrate, because I'm going to move to work on the G string slot, or channel, or strip, or whatever you want to call it. Just to, I say again, I don't like to go back over this, but some very kind folks quite often say to me, this is you know, this method is genius and I should patent it, blah blah blah. And whilst I'm happy to take credit for showing you how to use it, it isn't the principle of fret leveling with the neck in playing position and the strings on, using a tunable tool like this. It's not my idea. It's an idea that has come from somebody else who's put it to work in a tool they've manufactured and are selling at a fair old price. And for some kind of quite ridiculous reasons, due to the to the behaviour of the person selling the tool, I'm not able to use it. Even though I bought it and was quite happy to use it and recommend it to everybody, it just became impossible to use due to the person's approach. And so I stopped using it, and the result was I still needed to do this job, and I was still dedicated to doing it in this way, because it is more accurate than doing it with the neck off in a sort of passive leveling process, which most people do. So it's not my idea, and actually I was kind of pushed, you could say forced, into having to do this in this way by somebody's sort of bizarre, unprofessional outburst, if you like. And the kind of net result is that there are loads of people out there now trying this out for themselves and not buying that individual's tool, which is kind of not what I set out to do, because the proof of that is the fact that I actually bought that individual's tool for 145 bucks and was quite happy to, until he started behaving that way, in which case I wasn't happy to use it. So you know, the net result is, after all of that, I'm continuing to use this improvised tool, and quite a few people have learn to do the same as a result of watching these videos and get great results with it. So there's a sort of business wisdom message in there. think one of the biggest problems is if the tool that you're investing loads of your time and effort into trying to manufacture and patent and so on, commercialize, shall we say, if that tool can be copied by some half intelligent individual in their shed, in a matter of minutes, for no money at all, then the bottom line is you can take the personalities out of it. You are in a sticky wicket, because how can you commercialize your tool when somebody can make one themselves? And then it becomes that your only hope of success is that nobody notices that they can make their own for no money, which is a kind of terrible foundation to build a business on, I've got to say. And then the kind of next level of complication is that if your business does depend on people not noticing that they can do it themselves, then the one thing you could do, that you really could focus on to make sure that people continue being happy to buy your expensive version and not get forced by necessity to make their own, is to treat them really well. And that's the one thing you didn't do, and hence I'm back here using this, because the individual concerned kind of thought it was all about, or seems to think it was all about personalities and individuals, and actually you take the people out of it. I just needed a thing that does this job, and I'm very grateful to the fact that his tool alerted me to the fact the job could be done this way. And I was like a lot of these, a lot of people who look at this and go, no, it's not possible. How can you level frets with? I was like that, my first reaction, and then I learned how and why, and as a result of buying that tool. But circumstances made it impossible to keep on using it, sadly. And but what didn't change is I still needed to do the damn job that way. So I invented my own version, and here's the result. Funny enough, I've still got the other one over there. I tried to give it away the other day and the person wouldn't take it. It's not funny. Now what I'm seeing on this here is that there are some uneven frets showing up, and I can see them cutting up where other frets aren't. So it's what you expect. Even when you put, however good you get it, there are going to be some uneven frets in the thing. The question is if the unevenness is below the level of the action you've chosen, then you don't have to worry about it. But in this case, the only reason I'm really worrying about it is because I've got to get rid of the surface marks. Got to get rid of the surface marks that I put on it in the other process, which is annoying. Anyway, we're almost there. And just a little bit more bend on this, a little bit more. It is all about feel, this, after a certain point. Particularly so with this long one. This is the shorter and stiffer, if you like, the tool is, madam, the easier it is to use. However, I'm after accuracy here, so I'm going for the bit more difficult to use tool because I want the result. I have, and again, this is one of those things that people who critique this just can get really annoying when they critique it without thinking, how much experimentation has gone into this, right? Here's another one that I've put together, and that's really stiff because of the box section and whatever. It's a really stiff truss rod. It's a StuMac variant, but it's too wide for my liking, right? I don't want to level frets in big wide chunks like that. I want to do it in this thin strip effect because this respects the radius and is a much more accurate and delicate way of doing it, or gentle, subtle way of doing it. So much as I prefer to use this stiff thing, which is wider and not as, it doesn't quite cover the whole fingerboard. I just have to do a little bit of movement. It's quicker and easier to use, but it's not quite as accurate. And so I'm going to put in the extra effort for the accuracy. Hence, I'm increasingly more and more using the bass guitar truss rod here, which covers all the strings in one go, you can see that I've marked off the whole length of it, so I know what I'm working with when I'm using it. So, and it's every time I've used it so far, it's produced great results, so I'm going to carry on doing it. Tiny bit more on this last one, and then I may just recheck the height of the action here, because I know that's what Russ made a small adjustment when he got blue back. He put it up slightly on the E string action, so knowing that about him, I'll probably do the same with this, in which case we don't really need to go quite so far on the fret leveling on this one, because we'll take care of it with a slight action increase, but it never hurts to have it kind of the underlying thing right, so that if he wants to lower it back down a little tiny bit, he can. Okay, so with a tweak, or a tweak with Russ in mind, I'm going to just fractionally increase the height of the low E string, and it's a very small increase. In fact, I'll tell you what it goes up to now. It's gone up to exactly 1.5 millimeters. Obviously it's not quite in tune at the moment, having pulled and pushed everything around a bit. I'll tune it up one more time. Okay, all good. So that's the end of the fret leveling process. When you've finished, you get a sort of pattern, or a map of where you've been and what you've leveled. It's quite interesting to just take a look at that before you move on and trash the evidence. I can see a couple of frets that clearly stand out a little bit higher than everything else. Those two particularly, and that one there. So, they're the ones that are stand out, if you like. So just out of interest, it's a good refret job, and 2 or 3 frets could have been a little bit better, and I need to ask myself, well, was that stuff in the slot? Was that not pressing with the right pressure on the press? Who knows? But it's good to know. It's good to look at what could possibly be improved. But all said and done, that's a nice action with very little savage work needing doing. Looking at comparing it to this neck that I received from Murray on his modern player Telecaster, that was a set of jumbo frets that were at least 50% worn away by a single fret level at a single luthier visit. I couldn't understand, still can't quite work out why it was done that ferociously, but whatever the reason, it kind of basically it meant for a less than 1 year old guitar that the fretboard was already more than halfway through its life. Now if you think of a guitar might need 20 years before a refret, for somebody to take 10 years off the playing life of your guitar through heavy-handedness is a pretty bad thing to, it's a pretty crappy thing to do. So we kind of decided that rather than spend loads of time trying to renovate half-dead frets, it was just, the guitar is so new and such a nice, they're such great players and such great capable tone machines that it just made sense to put new frets on it. And of course that, it means the customer has to spend again, which is a real shame. But again, it's not something I'm afraid I have any control over. It's down to what somebody else did, but what a shame. So these are going in the bin, and they've done their sterling service as sacrificial frets for the time being. You can see as I'm doing this, you can see now where the dust from the cutting has gone, and I'm going to now mask off the neck and get into re-profiling the frets, which by the way was what wasn't done on Murray's guitar either. So not only had they taken 50% of the life off the frets in a sort of wanton orgy of fret leveling, they'd also but also not crowned them, so they were flat, which was the first thing I noticed just visually. Which also actually was the same error, mistake, or shortcoming that I found in a recent new neck from a supplier that I bought a tele neck from. It turned out that their manufacturer had levelled the frets in the factory, which is kind of unusual, and I suppose that it's clearly an attempt at improving quality, which is a good thing. But having done that, they left them flattened and hadn't done anything to reprofile them, because I suppose the reality is it's easy enough to level a new neck with a radius block. But each fret, if you're going to do that, then each fret requires individual attention in order to reprofile it. So take for example, if you're in a hurry and you didn't care about how much material was left, this is a 10-inch, I wouldn't use that, but you can get a really quick fret level. As long as this neck is flat, then you can just literally go up and down here with the correct radius block with sandpaper on it, and you've got yourself a mechanical, precise leveling. Now there's lots of things about that. One is that it's not as accurate as the method I use because it doesn't take into account the stringing compression and the effects that has on the position of the frets. But aside from that, it's a very quick and accurate way of improving or leveling your frets. And they did that clearly in that factory that I was telling you about. But once you've flattened it, and the same was true of Murray's, once you flattened it, flatten the frets with the radius block, that might be quick. Literally, it will take you 5 seconds to flatten the frets, level the frets that way. Once you've done it, you then have to do the next bit, which is to take your reprofiling tool and do every single one of them. Then again, polishing them can be done en masse, which is why they were also polished adequately, but the individual bit that takes time wasn't done. Okay, so the normal next step on this is I'm going to mask off the whole fretboard. I won't bore you with doing it all, but you've seen the process before if you've watched my videos. I do these larger frets straightforward like this, and then I cut a load of little thinner strips in a very boring way, and I listen to the radio while I'm doing it, and then I come back, and at this case I'm not going to bore you because Russ knows, for example, this is his guitar, so he knows what I'm going to do with these frets, but I'll let you know that, so I don't have to show you basically. I want to listen to the radio and have some brain off time. But what I'll do is, once I've masked this whole thing off, I'm going to take a marker pen and mark off each of the frets, and then I'm going to take the recrowning file. I'm going to recrown each one into a nice curve without reducing the height of it any further. And then when I've done that, I'm going to polish out every fret with 3-4 grades of wet and dry paper, and once I've done that, I'm going to move on to 9 grades of micromesh paper, and at the end it'll be playable, shiny, and I'll come back to you when I'm re-stringing this baby with tens and we're ready to test it out, take all of the stretch out of the strings, and yeah, be ready to play. So I'm going to hang this up for a minute while I put it down somewhere, while I cut some paper. I'll come back after I've done all of that boring stuff, which will take about an hour. So you know, I'm not deliberately trying to shorten the videos, but if you imagine how long this process takes, just add another hour to this process, and between now and when I put the new strings on. So I'll see you then.